because everything's verbal instruction now. So people are like, well, does this even work if you're not touching the dog? You know, because prior I would work with the dog, then hand them to you, so you would see me work with them.
Oh, okay.
And if like the owner had problems, I would work with the dog. But now, since it's strictly verbal instruction, people are like, well, then how do we train the dog? I'm like, well, the way that I train is effective, but I no longer have to be a part of it if they're doing like the in-person training stuff. I think you guys, I saw it was a daycare and train.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And then explain to me just with Winnie, it seems like just obedience type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we
she's
talked.
just a baby. She doesn't really know anything yet.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think we want to be able to communicate better with her and get her to listen to us. It feels like there are lots of times where she's just like zoned out completely.
She's like focused on, you know, digging a hole somewhere or distracted by something. We're like, Winnie, Winnie, Winnie. And she's like, you know, it's like she doesn't even hear us.
Besides the like normal jumping up on the counter and on people and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So you got some counter surfing?
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, the other problem is, you know, she's 6 months old, and she's obviously a big girl, she's getting bigger, and so it's kind of like,
Come here.
I mean, she's so sweet, but like, we just had her at my parents' house over the holidays, and I think it was kind of annoying, because, you know, she's a big dog, like jumping on the couches and stuff. My mom's like, what the hell? So we just want to we want like a more obedient
Correct.
dog, given that she's getting large.
Yeah. Do we know how big we're expecting her to get?
I mean, she's like 62 pounds now at 6 months, so
Just
she's
turned
half
6
Great
months.
Dane.
Yeah, I can see with like the ears and stuff. She's got those big old floppy Dane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's Great Dane, German Shorthair Pointer. So we're
Yeah.
thinking like, I don't know, 85 or 90 pounds. That's kind of a guess. I mean, who really knows?
So unless she has another growth spurt, because her paws don't look very big, in my opinion here, dogs tend to hit their height at 6 months, and then they fill out. Okay, now the larger breeds like the Danes, the German Shepherds, the Rottweilers, and stuff like that, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, I guess she could hit 80 pounds, but it'd most likely be more filling out unless she has like another little growth spurt where she grows taller and then fills out.
I mean, she's currently growing about 2 to 3 pounds a week still.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
We did the DNA test, so we know she's 50% Great Dane.
Oh yeah, no, I can see it
Yeah.
for sure. Like, you know, and then GSP, I see more of Dane in terms of like her shape and her body and stuff like that. But her paws, like when we get Great Danes, like their paws are massive.
Yeah.
Right.
They're huge. Like I saw one time at the veterinary clinic, I was a Great Dane, and I'm like, in my head, I was like, this guy is not 6 months, but he was in a 3-month-old puppy, but he was like big,
Yeah.
you know, already at 3 months. So, all right. Anything else about Winnie here?
I don't know. Not really. I mean,
No.
just kind of basic, you know, it's basic stuff. Like she knows like sit, paw, whatever. She knows off, like she'll jump off the couch for a treat, but then she's right back on. So she's not like, you know, we just kind of general obedience stuff.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'd love to be able to go on a hike without her on a leash, you know,
Yeah.
her be able to pay attention and
Come when she's called.
come when she's called on the first call, even with the biggest distractions. I think that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I don't want to say just general obedience because it's not. I want more obedience than that, but we're not like hunting or anything like that. There's
Sure.
no directional training or anything like that we need to do.
Gotcha. So I'm sure, I mean, you guys read over the forum, I do prong and e-collar. E-collar, in my opinion, is the only tool that can guarantee off-leash reliability. Because it gives you a means of communication. So the way that works is, are you guys familiar with e-collar at all?
Yeah.
Have you used it before?
I used, I don't know, it wasn't the brand e-collar, but I've used an electric collar on our other dog when he was, you know, a year or two.
Okay, do you remember the model or the brand? Was it like a yellow remote or anything like that?
I don't remember.
No? Okay. So e-collar is more so just the name of the tool itself. There's a number of brands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like the brand I use is Dogtra. So that would be more like a name specific.
Okay.
And with the daycare train, the way that we do it is there's 5, 10, 15, and 20 day programs, right? And so we started filming like, the sessions and stuff. So like let's say with Winnie, if she did like a 5-day program, we record the first session of every command we teach. The sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Okay, so 6 commands. And we make a comprehensive video. And we send that to you as soon as we have that put together. And then you watch that video, and it's essentially, my trainer is training Winnie, but also explaining what he's doing with Winnie. Okay, so you're watching your dog being trained for that first session, because the first session, she doesn't know what's going on. So we're gonna see more resistance, we're gonna see more uncertainty, nervousness, sometimes even fear because of e-collars and negative pressure. So dogs tend to be like a little bit apprehensive of it. And then you see us, or see him work through those moments. And it kind of teaches you about your, about her response to pressure. And you watch it, and you can actually watch the video, and once you have it and see it, you can start applying the stuff to Winnie, okay? And then you get follow-up lessons. So we send the video first, you watch your video, you practice that for a couple of weeks or whatever length of time you're wanting to do, and then you say, hey, we're ready for our first lesson. And then I come in and I kind of bridge the gap for anything that maybe is not transferring well. Okay? Maybe there's a concept you're not understanding or something. If you do longer programs, what we're doing is we're building her closer to off-leash, or as close to off-leash reliability as possible within the program, okay? But you still have your follow-up work. So the first week, it's the first session of everything that we teach, so that tends to be a longer video. Then the second week, it's an overview of like, Winnie knows all these commands, and this is where she's at now, okay? The third week, we make another video, because then we start working with the dog if they're social within in the pen, in our play pen with other dogs, so we start working around distractions. And then if we do like a 20-day or like a 4-week daycare and trade program, she starts taking trips to Horner Park to work outside. And, and then there's like another video that's put together. So depending on the program that you do, 5, 10, 15 to 20 days, you can get anywhere between 1 up to 4 videos explaining and showing her progress and just how we apply things, right? So then you just watch those videos. A lot of our clients watch the videos, and we don't book the actual lessons until like 2 to 4 weeks later, because the video is enough to like transfer everything and get them to understand the concepts and stuff. And I just come in to help them with any little things that they're having problems with. Okay. The one command that takes the longest to transfer and the longest to make reliable is the recall, which is the most important one. Because we can practice recall as much as we can here, but it still has to be done outside.
In real life,
Right. So that's why we start doing trips to Horner Park. They do trips to Home Depot over here to start applying all the obedience outside. So it's not just we train your dog for 15 minutes and then they're done for the day, or like 3 sessions. Like she's training as much as possible throughout the day. She's doing duration work. We do have placemats here, and we really stress duration, where she learns to sit still for 2 to 3 hours, and she's relaxed and not like she's getting frustrated, she's wanting to move around.
I know, and I don't want to like yank on is it okay to let her off, or she might just like.
I can close it.
Okay. I just don't want to like be,
So this prong collar here is actually meant for correction, right? So if you would, like you said, yank or pop around the collar, that's actually meant. That's how that's meant to be.
Oh, really?
So that's meant to mimic a dog bite. So when you pop the leash, you create this biting motion with your collar, and that's meant to stop the behavior. Okay. Most people, when they put the prong on the dog, they're thinking when the dog feels pressure that they're gonna give in to pressure, but it has to be taught. So that's why, like right now, when she was moving and you were moving with her, she wasn't learning to turn off the pressure because you're moving in with her.
Oh, okay.
Right? Where I would use the prong to actually get her to settle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the prong collar is a great tool. I love prong collars. But I don't use them as much anymore because they take too much technical skill for people. Whereas with e-collar, it's just press a button.
Yeah.
And there's more behind that. It's not like they're a remote control or anything. We have to shape the behaviors using pressure, but that's what the videos are for. Because people tend to think, I say sit, the dog doesn't sit, I just press a button and the dog sits. Right? That's how people usually think it works, and I go, no, we have to shape all these things using,
Exhibit A.
yeah, it's okay, using the e-collar. So it's explained in the video. So you go, oh, that's how she learned to sit with the e-collar. Okay? I'm all about educating people as much as possible. Yeah. Because the more you know, the better off you're going to be. Because then if something happens, like an emergency scenario, you're going to have a means of regaining control. Yeah. And so the one thing I always stress to people is people approach training like everything's gonna be great and fine, the dog will always be compliant, or the environment will always be perfect. And that's not the case.
Right.
You know, whenever anybody's ever come back to me about like e-collar and them being so grateful for it, their dog ran away because of a firework.
What'd you do, Scott?
Sweet. That was super fun.
It was a good score. She's
So-
like, I actually have that back.
No, and I think you've hit it on the head there. I mean, I think this training is, I mean, it's 50-50 for us.
Correct, right. The dog's always the easiest part. It's really training the human
Yeah.
to understand and think like we think.
Yeah.
You know, because
Really accurate.
Very curious.
yeah, people are always surprised when they're like, "Oh wow, you're not training the dog, you're training me." I'm like, yes, like that. You know, you hear it all over the place. Especially like if you ever watch Steve Milan, the dog whisperer.
Yeah.
He always talks about like it's the human, because dogs already know what to do themselves. You know, like they don't sit and down each other or whatever, but they know how to like
Come.
regulate each other
Come here.
and correct each other and all that stuff.
Come here.
So
Come.
the length of time in terms of how long per daycare and training program would be, just comes down to like how much control you're wanting. Okay?
Yeah.
So the 5-day, 5 in-person training, right? And there's 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. And then we have a 5, 10, 15, 20-day program for the daycare and training,
Okay.
right? So the way they equate to each other is like a 3-week in-person is like a 5-day daycare and training. And then a 6-week in-person is like a 10-day daycare and training. And then the 9-week is like the 15-day, and the 12-week is like the 20-day.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're doing 2, oh wait, am I doing the math right? 2 trainings a week?
For,
You said a 5-day is a 4-week training? So you're doing 1 training a week?
no, so the 5-day is, so you know board and trains are like 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week? The daycare and train is equivalent, like, so 1 week board and train is like a 5-day daycare and train. Does that make sense? So she could come Monday through Friday, and then that would complete her 1 week of daycare and train.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to split it up, because
Got
then she'd be here forever, right?
Yeah.
But if, the difference is with in-person training, because I have 3, 6, 9, and 12 lesson programs, versus a daycare and train, the equivalent is a 3-week in-person is like a 1 week or 5-day board or daycare and train here. Does that make sense? In terms of what you're accomplishing?
I'm not following.
I don't know
to be
why I'm
honest.
not following either.
I
I
don't-
have the brain
Let's
like broken.
forget about board and train, because we're never gonna do
Yeah,
that.
well, also,
Right.
let me
No.
just mention, I think we were talking about doing like 2 or 3 days a week, right? We
Yeah,
don't necessarily want to
yeah,
do.
For your daycare and training?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, so, here, for the daycare and train, the length of time that you're wanting, or that you'll need is dependent on how much control you're wanting,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
So, if you're wanting full, complete off-leash control over the 6 commands, you know,
Yes.
sit, stay, count, down, come, place, heel, that's the 20-day program. If you're wanting, I walk my dog on a leash and we just go to the dog park, you could essentially get that done in a 5-day
Sure.
daycare and train program, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me, so if your life is, we would go to restaurants together, we would,
Yes.
1 second.
Sorry.
No, do what you have to do to her to get her to stop.
Yeah.
Where was I at? Oh, so if you're like, if you go to restaurants, if you go to dog parks, if you walk all the time with her, if you go hiking and she's gonna be off leash in unenclosed areas, then you're needing full control. If it's just we walk our dog and we go to a dog park, then you don't need full control, right? Because your life is simpler.
Yeah, I think we'd like, I mean, even at the dog park, for example, like, we don't feel that she's necessarily gonna come when we call her, we have to kind of wrangle her.
Mhm.
And I think we would love to take her to the, you know, outside part in the corner park, not like the enclosed dog park.
Sure.
Like the, you know, we see other dogs running around, we're like, we don't currently feel comfortable doing that with her, because she
Sure.
might run to the street. So, you know, we'd love to have that kind of control over her.
Yeah, I think we want full control. I think it's probably dependent on also the dog, right?
Right, how she does with it.
I think she actually wants to know what you want.
Mhm.
She doesn't fight you very much. She's very treat motivated.
Loves treats, she loves these banana treats so
Treats
much.
and poop bags.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she'll do anything for a minute treat. The problem is, she'll get the treat, and then it's like she goes back to the bad behavior. So
Right.
that's
So it
kind
would
of-
almost feel like a treat dispenser as opposed to like she is understanding.
Right, so the reason why food doesn't work for that stuff is because food is good for stuff you want to see again, but it doesn't work for stuff you don't want to see again.
Right, I almost feel like we're training her to jump on the couch and get a treat.
Right, so she's learning, hey, if I know you and I jump on the couch, you give me a treat to jump off.
Yeah.
So they play a game.
Yeah,
So,
it is a
well,
game for her, for sure.
So like, let's say,
But I guess my point is, I think that I don't know if it's 20 days of training is the right amount for her, but I guess, I think it comes down to cost, then.
Sure.
The difference between 10 days of training and 20 days of training.
Yeah, and also her progress and how she's responding.
sure.
Yeah, right.
So with e-collar, the reason why, if you look at my my prices, I think I'm like one of the most expensive trainers in Chicago, if not the most, because once I train your dog, that's it. Like you're not having to go to have her trained by somebody else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I get other trainers' dogs, and I get other trainers' dogs that are trained on e-collar, but they don't know how to train with e-collar correctly, right? So then I come into play, and I just tell the other owner, what do you want? And they go, this is what I need. And they go, 6 classes, 2-week board and training, 10-day daycare and training. Sometimes it's just simple leash walking, 3 classes, reactivity. Like I can give set answers because I've done this for so long, right?
How long have you done this?
10 years. And, yes, I'm not your star. So here, all I'm doing is trying to get her to relax. But since she's so stimulated,
Yeah.
She's got a lot of energy right
She
now.
definitely, I think personality, so I grew up with Great Danes, and our dog that we had before who passed away this summer was a Dane mix, and I just like love that breed, and I feel like they are sort of easy to train because they're so emotional and they just don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to upset you, so if you tell them no, they're like, oh my god, I've done something wrong. She does not, she seems to have more of the GSP personality, like she's kind of like, if we tell her no and get really upset, she kind of just like looks at us like, what's happening to you? You seem to be like, something's happening to you, but she's not like emotional,
Sure.
So we basically stopped yelling at her because we're like, you don't care. Like,
Yeah, well, the thing is, dogs, it comes down to temperament, right? So like, some dogs, people can scold, and they're so soft that the scolding is enough to deter the behavior.
right, yeah.
Most dogs, because dogs correct each other by biting. So if she did something to like one of my dogs, and they didn't like it, they would nip or bite her.
Yeah.
Not because they're aggressive, but because that's how they correct.
Well, she responds well to the dog parks and that type of stuff.
Yeah, because that's her language.
Right.
And then if you have a more physically or emotionally tough dog, you need to have physical aversives, which is where tools like that come into play. Okay, so like, and that one isn't the incorrect size for her if you were to do prong, and if you needed prong, we would tell you which one to get.
Is it too big or?
Yeah, that's too big. That looks like a 3.3 millimeter.
Yeah, this was for our dogs that we had had before. We
Sure.
just removed like 1 or 2 prongs. So.
Sure. For her, she most likely needed a 3 millimeter. Okay, because it should be fitted up here. It shouldn't be down at the base of the neck. That's too big. It should be up here. Okay. So, but if you're doing remote collar, you're more than likely not going to need prong because remote collar is the ultimate training tool.
Yeah.
Now, if she got to be really big, right? I don't think she will, but if she were to get that big and you needed more leverage. So to give you an example, I had a young lady, she was 90 pounds with a 150-pound huge Great Dane, okay, who was dog reactive. So she saw a dog, he would start even barking, right?
Yeah.
So she did prong with e-collar because she's 90 pounds to 150 pounds.
She needs the control.
Right, so if she turned the corner and she saw a dog and he started blowing up, the prong collar was the immediate control while the e-collar settled him down. Does that make sense? In most cases, prong is not needed, but they're perfectly safe to use in conjunction if needed, okay? So the reason why I do mostly e-collar is because if she's gonna be off leash and if that's her goal, if you're too used to using the leash and she's off leash, you're too conditioned on using the leash. And I wanna condition you to always use the remote.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because our responses are based on habits.
Yeah.
And everybody tends to try to control their dogs physically. as opposed to trying to control them mentally. And I always stress controlling them mentally, especially with a huge dog like Hank, I think his name was. I have another lady right now who has a Roddy who's going to be 120, 130-ish pounds. And I'm like, you definitely need to have mental control over this dog because he's going to be a big boy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing here, and I do this with all dogs, whether they're an 8-pound Chihuahua to a 150-pound Great Dane. It's all about mental control. And e-collar, in my opinion, is the only tool that can actually achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very easy to learn and it's easy to transfer to the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter the size, or like in some cases with dogs, like if the husband is softer than the wife to the dog, the husband's number might be higher on the remote than the wife's dog, the wife's number, because the dog respects her more, and then vice versa. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it allows me to also just kind of close gaps on relationships sometimes, because if one person's too soft, they need something to kind of compensate for that, otherwise the dog won't listen to them, okay?
Okay.
So in terms of like length of time and stuff, you pick and choose 5, 10, 15, 20.
Yeah.
Okay? I personally don't care. It's just a matter of, if you're wanting her to leave here as close to off-leash train as possible, it's more time.
Yeah.
If it's like, hey, can you guys just do the foundation, and we're gonna watch the videos, and we'll practice on our own, and then we'll get in touch when we need you for those follow-ups, and then you kind of do that second half, then you can do a shorter program. You know, it just depends on how much you're wanting to do after she's done.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because regardless of any program that you do, 5, 10, 15, 20, you can get her to off-leash.
Yeah.
You have the tools, you'll have the knowledge. You'll just have to put more time into it depending where you leave off at,
Yeah, that's fair.
okay?
And is it, like, you don't need to know in advance how, like, we can sign up for, 10 sessions or whatever, and then
Well, the
decide.
cost is different.
Oh, so if we decide in advance that we want to do 20, the cost is different than if we do 10 and then 10 more?
Correct, so like if you did 10, like let's say for sake of numbers, because I don't know off the top of my head, let's say 10 is 2,000, and let's say 20 is
I think 20 is 3,000, yeah.
Okay, let's say it's like that. So then sometimes we used to do this, we don't do this anymore, but if you did 10 and they wanted to change it over, that we would just do the difference. But if they do 10, it's just the same cost. But if you commit up front, then we go, well, you're already telling us you're gonna do 20 days, then you get the, you save $1,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Because, especially now with COVID, it's kind of flipped everything on its head. So all the stuff, like I used to prorate the program, and just like, yeah, it's just, well, if you do 6 and you want to do 6 later to add up to the 12 or whatever, we'll just prorate it. But now with COVID and expenses going up and everything like that, it's just like, nope, it's just upfront, and then you decide. I personally don't care. But if you're looking for more so off-leash control, it's typically longer, but if, like I said, you don't mind doing more work and practicing and stuff, you can also do shorter.
Is it, let's say we move,
Mm-hmm.
what's the, do we get a refund if we?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Non-refundable, whatever we choose. Okay.
Correct, yeah. So you want to make sure if you're going to move or something.
We're not gonna move, that was an example. I mean, probably most likely is like we just hate each other and I just don't wanna work with you. In all reality.
Hopefully
That's not what I'm hoping for, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I try to accommodate as much as possible,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, because of COVID, it's really just put me in a bad position.
Yeah.
And I have employees that gotta be paid. So, a client might hate me, but my employees love me.
Yeah,
And
I
they do
respect
really
that.
good work, so I stick up for my employees.
So, what's the next step, or do you have any questions, or?
I do have a couple questions. So
Yeah.
one thing, you hear a lot about like positivity only training.
Mm.
I honestly have never fully understood like what that means because of what you mentioned about like how do you train the dog to stop doing the thing
Yes.
you don't want them to do? Like
Right.
it's hard to send that message.
Mhm.
But I've also read articles about like dogs having increased anxiety from negative reinforcement and stuff. Like that's like something
Yes.
I'm a little concerned about.
So yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so, how do I explain this? Have you ever seen a dog give another dog a treat for doing good behavior? Okay. Have you ever seen another dog sit another dog down and have a conversation with them about the behavior?
No.
No. But you have seen a dog sniff, growl, or bite at Winnie here to correct her behavior. Is that correct? And how does she respond to that correction?
She usually
Kind
lays
of
down.
cowers a little bit and then
Yeah.
they proceed with
Yeah.
playing.
That's the animal world. Okay? Humans have made things complicated. Now, it's not that positive doesn't work. It's not that we don't use positive. Okay, positive is great. It's great for shaping things, especially more complex behaviors like roll over, give paw or whatever, right? It's great for balancing out negative. So I was raised old school, I was spanked. So if I did something I shouldn't do, or if I would say, talk back to my mom, if I didn't do my homework, if I didn't do grades, spank, 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 right? So a negative became the motivator for me to either not do stuff, or make sure I did do stuff like do my homework, right? But then also, it was paired with positive. I had an allowance, I could go play with my friends, I had time to play video games, right? But I had to earn these things. So that's the balance. Now, do we need positive to train dogs to be off-leash reliable? We don't, okay? Now, we do it here because we're trainers. You guys are trainers, right? What you're wanting, or in most cases, I can assume what the owner is wanting, is something that's gonna be functional and effective and reliable with minimal effort, okay? Because you have jobs, they have families, kids, stressors in life, bills to pay, right? Things like that. The last thing they want to have to learn is how to be a dog trainer to train their one dog, right? So here, the stuff that you read is to deter people from using these methods, okay? But the problem is, I've had several, my career was built on e-collar. All my dogs are trained on e-collar. And I'm going 10 years into my career in my business of surviving during a pandemic, right? Because of the work that I do with remote collar. And I've had lots of people with that same question. And I have people whose dogs are like severely dog reactive. They're like, Jesse, I've seen 5 positive only trainers, none of it works. I get anxiety because I don't know when my dog's gonna blow up when I walk out the elevator. Or when I turn a corner in Lincoln Park, like I'm constantly on edge. My life is terrible, right? So the human's life, what they don't tell you is the human's life and quality of life is terrible. Just so they don't correct their dog. What they also don't tell you is that when positive doesn't work, they would rather tell you to put your dog down than to use e-collar or prong collar. That's something that they don't tell you, okay? I don't tell people to put their dogs down. I never have, okay? What I do is I come in and I go, okay, this is your dog's behavior. It's pretty severe. This is what we can expect realistically, right? And in some cases, the dog might be muzzled anytime they walk outside, just as precaution's sake. But if their dog's not blowing up at people, they're not lunging at people, they're not lunging at dogs and stuff. And it allows the owner to keep their dog. And maybe their dog is muzzled and a lot of stuff, but that's just for precaution's sake, to take anxiety off the brain. Now, in some cases, the owner will say, Jesse, I'm not gonna do that. I don't wanna have to walk around my dog on the muzzle. Then I go, that's fine. But if you're not willing to accept that answer, then I can't help you. You have to decide what you're gonna do from there. Does that make sense? Yeah. So there's always an answer. But it's almost always gonna include inversives because aversives are meant to stop behaviors. So like, you guys drive. Running a red light is like $100, $150, okay? People run red lights on occasion. But let's say that fine became $5,000 one day. Do you think people would be running red lights as much as they were before? Right? Because the consequence is so severe. But we have different types of aversives because we're self-aware. We have financial aversives, we have emotional aversives, there's also physical aversives, right? Because same thing for dogs. But for some reason, people think dogs think like humans do, right? So like putting a dog in the kennel for timeout, it doesn't work. Dogs aren't introspective. They don't think past or future, they think present, right? They'll think things like a water bottle will deter behavior. And if the dog is soft or soft enough, yes. But in 10 years of training puppies, almost always the can of pennies, the water bottle, the clapping the hands and saying no, the putting dog in the kennel stuff, the redirecting to a bone or something else, doesn't work. And people come to me, they go, Jesse, you've already done all this stuff, already done all the Googling, all the positive, whatever. It doesn't work. What works? Bite your puppy, because that's what the mom would do. That's what the dad would do, right? But we have to find the means of biting the puppy, like tools like that, in order to be able to communicate in that way. Does that make sense? So if we do get a dog that displays behavior like anxiety or fear or nervousness, it's not because of the e-collar. Like the e-collar is not making that happen. The dog was actually already genetically anxious, nervous, or fearful as a stress response. E-collar is a stressor. So what happens is if we start working with the dog and they look anxious And the owner goes, I've never seen my dog anxious like this before. Did the e-collar make my dog anxious? I said, no. Your dog already had that as a stress response. You just haven't seen your dog under enough stress to see the anxiety. Does that make sense? But then, if we look at life realistically, we have to work through those behaviors of anxiety, fear, or nervousness, because if we go to the setting of the firework blowing up, right, and Winnie's running, scared for her life, you have to be able to override that emotional state, right? So in some of the videos that we have up, like we have one right now, the dog's name is Utah, and he bit the wife. I think he bit somebody else. He attacked the dog out the front door, and he's lunged at a few kids. This dog's not playing. Okay, his first lesson is not pretty. Like, he's resistant, he's rolling around, he's screaming, he's shrieking, right? And I told the owner, this is all resistance. This is him not wanting to comply. And if we don't break this, then we never fix the aggression. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, stress is gonna happen in life. It happens to people, it's gonna happen to dogs. I had a client, I told them to correct their puppy, and then they told me, like, well, we wanna raise this puppy with no violence in their life or whatever. And I'm like, all right, good luck, because if you take your puppy to the dog park, it's gonna get bit at some point,
yeah.
right? The only way you can create more problems is if you attach emotion to your corrections. Stop it, no, stupid,
right.
No. Right? Mm-hmm. That is what creates issues. You know, I've seen dogs, right? And then stop the behavior from another dog, and then they shake it off, and they continue on with what they're doing. Because there's no emotion attached to it. So as long as you're not going overboard, as long as you're not being unnecessarily forceful or emotional, the dogs recover. Some dogs recover faster. Some dogs are just genetically messed up. I have one right, well, she finished the program, her name's Tessie. The owner couldn't walk anywhere. The dog wouldn't move. She would just shut down and cower. And then with e-collar, she was able to start going on walks with her. But if you look at the dog looks like this. But it's not e-collar. It's because the dog is just genetically, you know, yeah, you know.
And she has a really good disposition. Like, she loves other dogs. You know, she's not. I think she's developing a little bit of separation anxiety because of COVID, because we're home all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, she seems like generally like pretty good and like trainable dog that doesn't have issues. So, so I'm not like super worried about her. I just, you know, I don't want to like create anxieties, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, this here is actually anxiety.
Yeah.
Do you know why this anxiety is happening?
She can't do what she wants to do.
Exactly. Right? And here, in the beginning, it was her mouthing me and stuff, and then she started to sit and comply, and then she chilled for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then this is happening, right?
She's just too antsy.
Yes. Now, the reason why this is taking longer is because there's no real negative here. I'm just taking and I'm being patient, and I just keep positioning her. So you might see it as me putting her in a sit position. It's not. It's me telling her to relax. But her brain is not used to boundaries, formal boundaries, that are being consistently reinforced. And now she starts to get anxious. Because she's like, but I want to do this. And I go, but you can't. So then it creates conflict. Because her brain wants to do this, but I'm telling her brain to do this. So until there's either, it's like if I had her for like a day or two, even without e-collar, you'd have a different dog, right? But as soon as I give her to you, she'd go back to who she was. But with me, she'd be completely different. Because like this right now, how consistent I am with every movement she makes. She goes, oh, Jesse doesn't let me get away with these little things. He is super strict. She's gonna give me that side of her. You know, it's like with kids. So parents and grandparents. I knew when I was with grandma, I could push the boundaries, you know, be a little brat. But when I was with mom, I had to shape up. You know, same thing for dogs. They'll kind of learn who they can push boundaries with, and they'll literally shift how they behave depending on who they're with. Okay, which is why I really focus on transferring everything to the owner, because I think people think I drop my dog off, you train them, and I get them, kind of like a car. You know, oh, I need a muffler. Thanks, you should drive it off, no problem. There's work, you know.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, yeah, I think for sure.
Other questions?
No, not for me,
No, I mean, what's, no, I don't have any.
Okay, so then what you would do is simply, Maria will get in contact with you, and then you can bring her in whenever, like, we don't need you to, schedule it per se. Daycare trains are more effective Monday through Friday, because I have more staff here. Okay, so she'll get more out of it as opposed to like on a Saturday or Sunday when it's slower. And then you pick what length of time you want to do, whether it's 5, 10, 15, or 20. And as soon as we start getting the videos down, we send them to you. And then you can, as soon as you get that first video, then you can watch it, and then start applying what you've learned, okay? And then, when it comes to the follow-up, I know, she's still sleeping.
It'll just crawl away.
You schedule that whenever, they don't expire.
Okay.
You know, so like we have dogs that we did board trainings like a year ago, whatever. They did a couple of the follow-ups and stuff, and they can set. They haven't needed anything, but if something comes up in a year or whatever, they still have them. So.
Okay.
So, I guess one thing I want to understand is, you know, the 20 days, what you recommend if you want
If you're
to
wanting
train
the
off-leash.
full, like everything, you know.
Yeah.
So.
But in 10 days, can you, I think you said, you know, all lessons will be learned in 10 days. It's about like consistency then over a 20-day period.
Yeah.
So I mean, like if we sign up for 10, and will we have all the tools to teach her how to do the full obedience off-leash training?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just you do more work.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even with the 5-day, we teach all 6 commands in 5 days. If not by that first day, it's just a matter of reinforcement and application.
Okay.
So you can see how she get more frustrated now.
Yeah, she's having a tough time.
Yeah.
It's very tough.
What about, can we like see the e-collar and feel what it feels like?
Yeah. Just give me a second. Go ahead and you can call her to you.
Winnie,
Come here, Winnie. Come.
Oh, now you want
Oh,
to stay
yes.
there?
Come. Winnie, come. What, you want a treat? Come. Come. I know, that was tough.
That was weird.
Come on.
That was super weird.
Sit.
So what do you think?
Sit. Good girl.
It's tough
You're
times
just a
for
baby,
you.
and you don't know anything. Sit. Let's go stay here with me now, okay?
Yeah. It's tough to learn things. It's worked out for a while, yeah.
All right. You guys comfortable with not too hungry for you?
What's that?
Are you comfortable?
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay.
Oh, just real quick, how much more time do we have here today? Are we, which is 1 hour?
You guys, we got 15 minutes.
Okay, good, that's, I was just wondering.
Okay. So here, this is Indian collar. This is the highest power one. They just retired it recently. So here, I'm gonna go down to 15. So, all right, cool. So, so there it is. You see that twitch?
Yeah.
My thumb?
Yeah.
That's involuntary. That's this.
Is it like those ab belts that
Yep.
they used to
Can I
sell?
try
It's the exact same thing. So you're gonna take those 2 probes, put them here, lightly press down. This is 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
What
Feel
does it
that?
like? Just a muscle twitch?
Doesn't
Yep.
feel like anything. Is 15 high or what?
It's low. It's 10% of the power. 15.
Okay.
Feel anything?
Yeah. But I'm not twitching. Do I not have it right?
No, it's because I know where to place it, where it'll move my thumb to make it more visual.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this goes to 127. Do you want to feel 127?
I mean, I'm kind of scared of that. Like,
Just
would that
joking.
be,
Just messing.
well, but seriously, would that be painful? Like,
It's more uncomfortable, correct. So
Okay.
the muscle contraction, so actually, have you seen the labor contraction videos that they recreate in men?
no.
So if you go on
That's a
YouTube.
great idea.
So labor contractions are not pleasant, right? So they've actually used tendons to recreate labor contractions in men. And because the power is higher, it's obviously uncomfortable and painful, right?
Yeah.
So where 127 comes into play would be emergency situation. You know, you're at the park, she's off leash, she's running around. Let's say she spooked the fireworks, someone blows up a firework, she goes into flight mode, okay? Because she's thinking there's a threat.
Yeah.
She's running away. Obedience goes out the window.
Better than a kid hit by a car.
Exactly, you know?
So
it's
what's
a
the
trade-off.
highest you use in training?
Whatever's appropriate to her. So every dog number is different, much like with humans.
Winnie, come here.
If you go to a chiropractor or a physical therapist for the TENS unit therapy, they start low and they work their way up. And then you would say like, oh, that's too much, right? And then they would dip it down low and let it do its work. Same thing for dogs. So my theory of training is as low as possible, but as high as needed, okay?
Okay.
So most trainers teach what they call low-level e-collar. And my problem with the theory is and I think it's more so marketing to make people more comfortable with e-collar, which I get, because this has a bad rap. Because of just originally, they weren't this refined. They had only 5 levels way back when, and the increments vary greatly and were more uncomfortable, whereas I have 122 more divisions now, okay? So what happens with low-level e-collar training is they're stupid low, like 5 to 8, okay? So then what happens is the owner feels good because they're like, oh, my dog listens to a 5, but they're constantly going up higher to get the dog to respond in more distracting environments. What I do is find a middle ground, low enough that I'm not getting yelping or anything like that, but high enough that I'm not having to constantly go up and down depending on the context. I want my obedience to be reliable no matter what, without having to mess with this too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say when everything's perfect, her number is 15. But when there's dogs around, her number is 45. So instead, I operate around 35-ish, right? Like 25 to 35-ish. I'm in a higher range, so I'm not constantly having to shift between those two numbers. You know, every case is different. I get dogs that they won't listen to anything less than 90. You know, but that's just their number. You know, most dogs are within that 25 to 35 number range, but I've had a few outliers that are higher up.
Okay.
Okay.
So like, where would you start? Would you start her at 15?
Yeah, that's where I usually start,
Okay.
because that's where most dogs tend to feel it. It's super rare that I'll get a dog that responds to something like, you know, 5 to 10. Super, super rare, like maybe once a year.
Okay.
Other than that, most dogs are within the 25 to 35 number range. Then you get the outliers that are like 80 plus, and then you get like the others that are like in between those numbers.
Yeah.
It also just depends on the context as well.
All right.
And in the video, like, so you get, again, that comprehensive video that would show you like, hey, this is Winnie's working number. This is the number that's working for us here, and then my handler teaches you how to find that working number for Winnie in your own environment. Because it's gonna be different from my facility versus at Corner Park. Because there's two very different environments.
No,
Right.
not to the treat to me.
Which is why we expose the dogs as best we can outside the facility and apply the training outside. So that it's not just, oh yeah, I do all my training perfectly here. Like, no, it's being applied to the real world. So.
Okay.
Okay. And which collar do you recommend for her?
If we're thinking she's gonna be bigger, I would probably just tell you to get the 1900S Black Edition, which Maria will send you the link.
Okay.
It's essentially the newer equivalent of this. It runs about 325-ish with caps. It's a full 1 mile range, fully waterproof system, and these last for years. Okay, I've had my personal collars 8 years, no issues. The most common issue that we do see is that the battery is a rechargeable lithium battery, so at some point they do wear out. You go to the website, you find your e-collar and then the battery that you would need for it. You purchase it for 15, 20 bucks, you open up your collar, you replace it, and then you're good to go. Okay? So if they're more expensive, they're the most expensive on the market, but they're the best. And then you don't have to worry about having to replace them. You know, I had a client who did a consultation, and she had bought some for like 40 bucks on Amazon, and she was already on her 3rd or 4th one because they kept crapping out after a month or 2. And I told her the cost of mine. She said, oh my God, it's so expensive. I'm like, but you just literally spent like 120, 160 bucks on something that just keeps crapping out. If you just bought the one, you would be set for years.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would probably just put on the 1900s Black Edition because it's meant for 70 pounds and over. Okay. Any questions?
When can we start?
Maria will get in contact with you. Once you have we need her like shop records and the facility form and all that stuff, make sure she's registered. You can start her right away because we have our collars here. We don't need you to have your collar, okay? But you would need to have your collar when you're ready to start applying the training yourself. Okay, so once you get that first video, you can pop your collar on her and then start doing the training and everything yourself. And then when needed, you just schedule your follow-up with me.
Okay.
Okay, and is it something, sorry, is that, oh, so that is the collar, it's not like something that clips onto an existing collar?
No, yeah, you'll get your own collar with the strap. When you use it, you would not be clipping your leash to this collar. You would actually keep her with her normal flat collar, and then this would be above it, okay? So in the video that you'll get, like, the trainer Enrique will explain how to put the e-collar on, how to fit it, how to find her fitting and all that stuff, how to find her working number. This way you can just pop it on her and then start a plan with it.
Okay. Well, for the last, like, I don't know, we have like 5 more minutes, can we just like see the daycare facility? And
Sure,
like,
give me a second. Let me let my handler know.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to put her back on the leash?
Yeah.